So everyone has a perspective on US politics, and this is mine, focusing on the last 70 years. And keep in mind that right left in the US is different than right left outside of the US. So in general, we think about the left and the right. So liberals on the left, conservatives on the right. And typically liberals associate themselves as Democrats and conservatives associate themselves as Republicans. That's kind of a normal. So you have the traditional left and the traditional right. Now, one thing about the two sides is really focused on what's the objective that you're after. Liberals fundamentally want policies that make them feel good. Look what I voted for. Look what I passed. Look what I'm giving you because you need me, and here's how I'm here to help you. Conservatives fundamentally believe that people can be successful on their own, and they want policies that accomplish good. So it's great if they feel good, but the important litmus test is, do they do good? And in the past, liberals and conservatives agreed on the goals, but we just believed in different paths to get there. So we used to have common goals. That's the past. Now, in the 1950s through about 2012, what happened is liberals agreed that socialism is a dirty word and communism was the enemy. So did the conservatives. And so what kind of had to happen is that socialists and communists went underground. I mean, a Republican would label a Democrat as a socialist or a communist, and they would say, no, I'm not. And then as of about 2012, they'd say, well, yes, I am. Thank you very much. So that was a big change. So those things went underground, but they didn't actually go away. And because the Nazis killed so many people, fascism, was kind of properly discredited after World War II. But it was kind of discredited for the wrong reasons, because the people that were discredited with were actually socialists on the left. So what they really focused on was nationalism. Nationalism became the dirty word. And so nationalism was associated with fascism to give nationalism a bad name. But that's really a misreading of things. Today, fascist means somebody that I disagree with, especially somebody on the left. But fundamentally, a fascist they were socialist, but instead of being all the way down to communist, where they want the government to own the businesses, what they wanted the government to be telling the businesses what to do, and the companies to say, yes, sir, 3 bags full. I will absolutely do that. Now, the other thing, of course, is that the two fascist regimes of World War II, Italy, were minor racist, and Germany, that were huge racists. But they were also nationalist, as well as being socialists at their core. But they weren't global socialists. That was the communist. And so, the left kind of gave nationalism a bad name because of those two implementations. But, if you look at Lincoln, Churchill, Gandhi, many, many others, they were all proud nationalists. So, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with being a nationalist, but it's a mislabeling to also call them fascist. And so this was just an effort to discredit nationalism. Here's kind of maybe a better way to kind of show the left and right wheel, because it really is a continuum. So what happens, you have the liberals on the left and the leftists, but there's no firewall between the liberals and leftists. You can go as far as you want, and you're still invited to all the cocktail parties. If you go all the way communist, you're still going to be invited to the parties in Washington, D.C. and New York City, because there's nothing wrong with you. So what happened during that time of the 50s through 2000 is that the leftists entered the universities, into Hollywood and the media, and they took those industries over. And for no reason that I can explain, they took over Silicon Valley as well. And when you see how Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even Pinterest are censoring conservatives, but rarely a liberal, you can see that that's true. And so these fascists and socialists and communists have now found a home in the Democratic Party. Now, on the right, there was craziness on the right in the 80s. The extreme Christians did go crazy in the 80s, but that's pretty much all got resolved in the 90s. The moral majority was primarily on the right, but not solely. Tipper Gore was certainly part of the moral majority, even though her husband was a Democrat. But the thing that's important about this is the following, is there's a firewall between conservatives and the alt-right. If you have the beliefs of the alt-right that I'll talk about in a minute, you're not welcome in conservative societies. And as I'll show, the alt-right has far more in common with the left, but they have a hate wall between them, because even though they largely agree, they hate each other even more. And so I think that's an important point to talk about. So this graphic, I think, is actually a better way to look at this continuum of beliefs, because again, the alt-right has more in common with the left than with the right. And they both tacitly and actively embrace violence to achieve a political outcome. So let's talk about these things. So Again, liberals have no firewall. You can go as left as far as you want. Conservatives, there's an absolute firewall to the alt-right. And again, if you look at the diagrams here, conservatives, capitalism, individualism, they believe in a social safety net, but not UBI. Traditional values that the country was founded on, abortion limits. The alt-right is not welcome. Most are nationalists, but racism is not tolerated. If you look at the left on liberal, they want to tear down Judeo-Christian norms, abortion through 9 months, globalist. Minorities cannot succeed without our help. That's clearly how the liberals feel. They're fine with left policies. They're fine with breaking U.S. laws if they don't agree with them. They're fine with the judges creating laws. The left goes further with open borders, free health care for all. They're clearly anti-white racist. They're welcome above in the liberal circles. They're open socialists. They totally want to steal from the rich. That's how they want to pay for their programs. They're oftentimes anti-Semitic, and they clearly hate conservatives. Now, again, if you look at the alt-right, who also hate conservatives, many of them are racist, anti-Semitic, many are homophobic, white supremacist, and nationalist. So just because they're also nationalist, the press will say, oh, those are like conservatives. But there's a firewall between those groups. You are not welcome in those teams. And so if you look at those words here, clearly the alt-right has more in common with the left, with the big difference being the type of racism that they believe in. So just so you look at some examples, alt-right people like David Duke and Richard Spencer would clearly say that this is the things that they believe in. I chose 4 conservatives to put up at the top. It's hard to classify Trump as a conservative since he was a Democrat for most of his life, but since he ran for president as a Republican, we'll call him a conservative, and since he governed as a conservative. But then if you look on the left, Schumer and Pelosi really have been sliding left. I mean, they're clearly leftists by now. Warren is a huge leftist. Bernie, AOC +3 are huge leftists. And again, but they're totally welcome at the table when Democrats are speaking. Now, the other thing I think that's really strange about the alt-right is they really don't have a coherent belief system. They want to create a utopian racist society with no consistent philosophy. I mean, there's no country in the world that's really going to embrace the craziness you see listed there that the alt-right believes in. So let's talk more about the left wanting to feel good and the right wanting to do good. So again, the left says, oh, we want free health care for all, despite the fact that with all the dang laws that the U.S. has, it's just not affordable. Get rid of 80% of the laws and we can talk about free health care. But when the lawyers are driving the healthcare system, free health care is not even tenable. Free college, despite the fact that it's the left that's driven up the prices. If you look at why tuitions are so expensive these days, it goes right back to leftist policies. And the other thing that keep in mind of why does the left want free college is because you want to run everybody through your indoctrination society. Everybody's beliefs are challenged in college. You might enter college a conservative, but if you're not a strong conservative, they are going to convert you to the left. And so, of course, you want to get the government to pay for indoctrinating people in your belief system. On the right, the attitude is, hey, let's get everybody working that wants a job so they can afford basic care. Get the government out of healthcare, and it'll get fixed just like laser eye surgery was fixed, because since the healthcare coverage did not cover laser eye surgery, capitalism fixed it, and it became more and more cost effective as time went by. Let the market fix the prices, make the universities co-sign the loans. Instead of giving out these loans to people that they know won't repay the loan, they're going to get degrees that are not valuable, make the universities co-sign the loan so they share the risk of that loan. And then, as we did during the pandemic, we should change college loans to 0% interest. It's completely bogus that the government is raking college students and parents over the coals, and let's unleash the market to fix these things. And if you look at the evolution of U.S. of the parties, the Democrat Party has been co-opted by the left. The 2019 election, the last election totally shows that. And if you go back in time, Wilson and FDR, both racist, would fit in with the progressive left today. JFK would be thrown out of the Democratic Party because he would much more be a prominent Republican. And it's funny, if you listen to the news today, even Obama is considered a conservative by today's Democrat Party standards. The right have not fundamentally changed who they are or what they believe in. The beliefs that made America great are still the beliefs that are held in esteem by the conservatives. The right wants judges to enforce the law. The left wants the judges to put in laws or fix laws that they can't get passed. Now, the other thing is the media sells that that racism is on the left. This is just a bold-faced lie. The racists in the U.S. have always been on the Democratic side. The Confederate States were all Democratic-led. The civil rights were fought against the Democrats. It was the Republicans that pushed the civil rights laws. The Democrats only got on board when they realized they had no choice, that they had to change sides in order to continue to be elected. The Republican Party was founded as the anti-slavery party. And here's something that people don't think about is every Jim Crow law in the South, every one of them, was signed into law by a Democratic legislature and a Democratic governor, 100% of them. And if you go back to our foundational documents, if you go back to this, to the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, the things that the government was put in place for was to protect our liberty, our self-determination, the fact that we would be free to succeed, which, by the way, also includes the freedom to fail, limited government, and if you look at the Bill of Rights, it's freedom from the government, not powers of the government, it's freedom from the government. The foundation was not for free stuff. Also, if you look all the way through MLK, what we've been fighting for is equality, not equity. The left believes in everybody should finish the race at the same time. The right believes that effort should be rewarded, and if you work harder, you should be able to do better. So I think that's just another kind of important point. If you look at the Great Society as passed by LBJ, you could say, oh my gosh, he decided to stop being a racist, which he was all his life, and he wanted to do good. But really what he did was he just moved the South from Jim Crow laws to a Democrat plantation. And so really, you could just say he signed it because he finally had to give in. His laws led directly to the demise of families across all races in the United States. Lack of fathers in homes is one of the largest indicators of poverty and of criminal behavior there is today. And it's clear in retrospect that rewarding a woman to not have a man in the house has helped destroy the American family. Now, when you hear all these things, one of the things you'll hear, especially, oh, there was the big switch. All the racist Democrats joined the Republican Party. There's no facts to support that. Really, there was only one racist Democratic senator that changed sides, and that was Strom Thurmond. There's really no other examples. The reality is that as the Southern economy began to turn around and began to be successful, the citizens aligned more with the Republican Party thinking, and that's why that started. Another telling position is free speech. If you look at the left, speech that we disagree with should be banned. Hate speech should be banned. Social media companies should ban more speech. If you look at the right, the position is that we're more free speech absolutist. You can be as stupid as you want to be. I don't support you being, ignorant or rude, but you have the right to be. And importantly, the Supreme Court has ruled that there is no such thing as hate speech. It doesn't exist. And social media companies should not ban any speech. That's not their job. They're a platform. They're not editors. So I guess I'll leave you with two thoughts. When you look at this slide, political differences really are a continuum. And so just because a few sides have a few things in common, it doesn't mean that they are on the same side. And the alt-right and conservatives are not on the same side. The alt-right has far more in common with the left than they have with conservatives.